on the topic Kerala, the new Kashmir. The image of Kerala generally evokes a luscious green landscape with nice serene backwaters and coconut trees swaying. But now today, here is and see blood-soaked, gory murder due to red and green terror there. And without wasting much time, because Kerala Hindus today face an existential crisis. So I would today we have a great panel of erudite scholars here and members from the Kerala society to speak on this issue and even come up, not only put forward the problems faced by Hindus and put up solutions. How do we tackle the issue? How do we tackle the issue by Hindu activism? So we have with us George Tundiparambalji, and we have with us Dr. Sharat Menon, we have with us Ramasinhanji, and we have with us Dr. Vishwanathji. And now I'll hand over to my co-host, Shrikant. Thank you.
Thank you, Gayatri ji. Once again, welcome all of you to this today's Global Hindu Panchayat on Kerala, the next Kashmir. So we will start the Panchayat with Sri George Tundiparambil ji. I will give a brief introduction about the speaker. So George Tundiparambil ji is a prolific writer and an author, and he is a partner at the Gekolingua Translations International in Freiburg, Germany. He has been dividing his time between Kerala and Germany since 1997. And he has written a book, a historic novel titled Maya, about an African slave brought to India by Vasco da Gama. He has also authored numerous scholarly articles on comparative religion, focusing on philosophical and operational distinction between Hindu Dharma and the Abrahamic faiths. Published, and these have been published in various Indic websites. So welcome, George ji. And I would like to request all speakers that your time limit is 15 minutes. So that is the format we have. Every one of you, all four of you will get 15 minutes. I will give you a warning when we are 2 minutes to the end of time. So George Tundiparambil ji, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shrikant. And thanks all of you, the organizers, the World Hindu Foundation. And also, I feel very privileged to be here and to meet especially Ram Simhan, of whom I have heard a lot about. And I'm very happy to meet you, sir, here. And also Professor Sharat Menon and Dr. Vishwanath. I know about the Hindu Seva Kendra, already the good work, what they've been doing. And so now I'm I'm going to speak about whether Kerala is the new Kashmir. Before I come to the exact details of what is going on according to my perception and what I read from the media. So actually what happened in Kashmir is what has happened everywhere else in the world. If only for us Indians, of course, because Kashmir is in the boundaries of India, we are a little alarmed, and the same thing happening in Kerala, and also the conversions and also the intimidation and even the constitutional partiality that has been in operation since our so-called independence. It has all been very, very detrimental and very weakening for the old civilizations, and which is represented by India here. Because the Indian, or rather what we call the Hindu civilization or the Dharmic civilization, is very unique in the sense it is the only surviving pagan civilization. So what has happened in Kashmir has happened everywhere else in the world. So the rest of the place is India. Of course, we can talk about Japan or China, but the whole worldview of theirs is very Semitic in the sense there is a big, between the Dharmic worldview and the Semitic worldview. I mean, of course, you all know about it without me telling you, but this Semitic worldview, this especially this culture and this sensibility, it is a parasitic culture, which means they cannot survive without eating up what is all around. So it is like a monoculture which takes over everything else. So this is what has been going on since many hundreds of years, and now we have come to India, and it is the 21st century, and now we face this problem everywhere. In Kerala, of course, I mean, it's not been like Kashmir because it was never in the forefront of an Islamic invasion like Kerala. It has been, but at the same time, perhaps at the same time or even before, we have come to terms with the Semitic ideology, with the people, but because of the very unique traditions that we had and the worldview that the Dharmic worldview, it accommodates everything, every culture, and it nurtures it in the sense they protect it. They don't have to, assimilate or to sacrifice anything to be in the society. So there is this really multicultural. I mean, that is the environment, the ecosystem of the Dharmic civilizations. But now, since of course we cannot say, I mean, we cannot rule about what happened, but we can only think about what is happening now and how we can survive, or this civilization can survive for the future, or if we cannot, at least how long we can prolong it or try to give it a try or something like that. So before I go on to the next, I will just tell you about Kerala, I mean, especially for those who are not from Kerala. Kerala had a very different, circumstances, historical circumstances, because it was when civilization began. I mean, not that humans were here, of course, but the civilization as we see it started with the arrival of the Brahmins, the Nambutiri Brahmins here, and it was very peculiar because here we had only the Brahmins and the Shudras. So there were its own problems, and there was no trade. So Christians, when they came, they were, everything was given to them. They were, encouraged to stay here. And they came as refugees. This Thomas story is just a hoax. I mean, like all most of this Christian history as such. So this they came, and then the Arabs were trading here even before. So when Islam came, it was embraced with both hands by the rulers because they wanted the Vaishyas here. They wanted traders, so they were given everything, whatever they needed. Even people, in the sense, I heard about the Samudri asking every Hindu family to have the one son to be a Muslim and so on, or to give a girl as a bride for a Muslim and so on. So this was part of the society, and there was nothing wrong in it, in the sense that was how our civilization was. It was to assimilate every culture and to promote them if they are contributing to the society. But it all started, in my perception, when in around 500, just a little over 500 years ago, when Vasco da Gama came here, because they had a different outlook. They were not like the Eastern Christians who were here, who had completely assimilated with the integrated into the Hindu society. They were like another caste, and because they were the Vaishyas, and they followed their their traditions without any interruption or any interference from anyone. But then slowly, the British, the European mandate, or the mandate of the New Testament, so began to be, that, especially in Kerala, that was the first, forceful thing to, they tried with the Francis Xavier, who started the very forcible conversions in Kerala. And also they, even the Eastern Christians were at a point in 1599, if I'm not mistaken, there was this what is called the Dayam or Udayam Perur Synod, which happened when these most of 99% of the Syrian Christians were converted to Roman Catholicism, but they came out after a little while. But again, there were very forceful conversion of the Syrian Christians into Roman Catholic. So what do we see the Syrian Christians today, 90% or even more, are Catholics. They follow, they only in name they are Syrians in the sense they don't have, they have translated the Latin things into Syrian and started reading it in their churches, and that is how it was. So I think I shouldn't. Then came the British and the British education, which gave, the missionaries were there, the CMS and the Basel missionaries. So all of these, it was the Hindu Dharma Shastras and the other Hindu institutions which stood in the way against these conversions which happened elsewhere. For example, this Hindu joint family, and it was a big obstacle for the missionaries. So the first people, the Basel mission in Talasheri, and even the CMS, they started occupational schools and also some factories, tile factories, and so on, in order to rehabilitate the converts, the Christian converts. So that is how it got started. And even then, with the British education and the princely states of Cochin and Travancore, they were, of course, because even at that time, the literacy rate as well as the standard of education and the standard of health were very high, even prior to all these, because of these very benevolent kings. And because they were more oriented to knowledge systems and studies rather than this conquests and so on. So that is one reason they all had English education even before the British had made any try to make people learn English here, because it was Swati Thirunal who started this in the Travancore, in the schools in Travancore. And so this European worldview, the Christian worldview, had already entered the Hindus, especially the educated Hindus. The only exception were the Nambutiris, who kept away from English education because for some reason, they kept away, which was, in one way, I don't know whether it was fortunate or unfortunate, because it was both in some cases. And that is, of course, a different topic. And then what happened was, Tipu Sultan came again, and there was a big demographic change. Because before Tipu Sultan came here, when he came, Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, the Zamuddin of Kozhikode, he was helped by the Muslims who lived there for centuries by then. And they all had to be there. They fought with the Zamuddin, and whereas Tipu Sultan came with his army from Mysore. And there was a time after the conquest when there were no Muslims in Calicut, in the sense to conduct the trade and so on. So Tipu Sultan brought many people and settled them there. So it is my guess that it is these people of course, they had this jihad in their blood in comparison with the other people who were here before, and who were called Maplas in the earlier times, and even now in some places. So this was going on. And then came, I think, the English education also made many Hindus feel ashamed of their own legacy, because there is in the early literature you find about feeling embarrassed about the matrilineal system, for example, and but after the 1947, actually the real downslide began, because the Hindus were decoupled from the dharmic systems, because everything became the new constitution, the new laws, and then came in 1956 the Hindu Succession Act, which enabled a convert from Hinduism to any other religion to inherit the property of his own father. So this was a big change, and otherwise people that this monetary and this property thing always held them back from conversions. And then came in 1975 what you call this Hindu joint family. And that was another blow in terms of because it fragmented the Hindu holdings. And just before this 1975, the Land Reforms Act had also, because it targeted only the agricultural land to be, taken and divided, with the people who share, who were in the land. In one way, it was good that many people who had, disempowered, who had no land, no houses of their own or no title, they got at least some bit of land to call their own. But on the other hand, this whole agriculture came to a stop. I mean, which we now have to, depend on Tamil Nadu and other states for our daily food. Like even for salt, we have to look outside. At the same time, the Christians held the plantations, which were, made outside the purview of this Land Reforms Act. So they were untouched. So that overnight, the Hindus became poor and fragmented. The whole agriculture was down. Their land was distributed. And so this was a systematic weakening by legislation. And, and then came the, these vote bank system, especially because whom we call the so-called low caste or Dalit, who lost their respect. I mean, they were a very respectful people in the sense, they had their own traditions, their own culture, and that was all gone with the Indian National Congress and the new British education brought with them, and they were forced into the temples because even the educated Hindus at that time who went with this opened the temples for all, regardless of the fact that they don't want to come into the temples. Their worship system was different. They had their own rituals, they had their own traditions. They were most this what do you call this animism and all that. They actually worshipped nature, but they had their traditional rituals, which you still can see, very colorful, very rich culture. This was all gone in a flash because of this British, this European view that we are all the same, we have to be the same, we can't have that, we have to have only this, so the whole temple should be open. Actually, the people, of course, they had some restriction. They only wanted access to these streets. They didn't want to go to some other communities, a temple or a worship place, but they were literally forced into taken there. In where in Vaikam, this first person to enter was carried forcibly into the temple by the so-called forward caste. So that is how it was. It was even if you take the Hindu community in Kerala now, I think 80% of them still have already transformed. They have their this Semitic worldview of no, nothing sacred in this world, especially of the nature. And you have scant respect for everything that moves is to be exploited. That is from the Bible. It is so. This everybody has imbibed through the education that we are getting, and even what we see from everywhere else. It is the same um, perspective and worldview that are forced into us. So becoming a vote bank, these radical Muslims, of course, they took advantage of it. The Christians tried to do it, but they especially the church, but it was not very successful. I remember, that they wanted to start Christian Service Society or something like that, but it flopped because some businessmen put some money in it, but it never took off because I mean, one good or bad thing about the Christians are they are like the Hindus. They also call they have these caste sense, and they don't join with some other Christians who will say so. They always are divided. But on the other hand, the Muslim radicals affiliated to this international what do you call Muslim Brotherhood and so on. So they took advantage of the situation. They did whatever they could. I mean, they're very clever people. The ones first
Georgie,
they
2 minutes.
Yes, please. Okay. All right. I will just put it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I don't have much more. So what happened was that they took advantage of the situation, and the Hindus were at the wrong end of the stick. And so the SDPI and PF, they are here reportedly conducting many training, in order for murdering people and or to create riots, and they have a free run because of this collusion with the corrupt politicians. So this is the current situation is brought to us like this. We see this now because of the polity of the social, everything being dictated and dominated by the Semitic worldview. It has taken over. It is almost complete. And what stands between them is only a formal thing, so to say. But of course, I see, I'm very optimistic about it, because I think, because of myself, and if a person like Ram Simhan, and there are so many others coming up, which heartens me, and that it is not as bleak a picture as we see now. So I hope I'm very eager to listen to all of you, and okay then, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Okay.
Thank you so much, Georgie. So you have brilliantly summarized the history of things that have been happening in Kerala. So now we move on to Dr. Sharath Menon. So Dr. Sharath Menon is based out of Houston. He was born in Kerala, and he is a social scientist by academic training and holds academic appointments in Houston, Texas, in USA. His area of special interest is the sociology of religion, and he has earned a doctorate with specialization in the sociology of education and a master's degree in both anthropology and sociology. So, in addition to his academic appointments, Professor Menon serves on the board of National Institute of Spirituality and the Health at the Texas Medical Center in Houston, Nestle Center for Faith and Culture, and also as the academic advisor to Indian History and Awareness and Research, a think tank based. Sir Sharath Menon, over to you. You have your 15 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay. I have a set of PowerPoints. Let me quickly try to share this video. 1 second. Share screen. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, sir, it's visible. Just make Wonderful. It a full screen.
Yes. Namaste to all, and thank you for joining this session. I'm indeed honored to be both invited and be attended by the distinguished team of people. And I shall in the next 14 minutes, I shall give you a sort of a synopsis of something that actually came out of my research some 12 years ago. And since then, I've been sort of following the trend. And also, I would like to apply some of my own theorizations and also a bit of sociologically things. So, yes, the component that I've been asked to look at is the love jihad. That is, the infiltration of religious interest into social institutions, in particular marriage and family, and how that is being manipulated. And it is popularly called love jihad, and also sex jihad. There may be some subtle difference there, variation, but look more at love jihad. And I will also go on to look at this phenomenon. as a sort of a phenomenon that has actually infiltrated the various social institutions of society, and not just confined to marriage and the family, but it is linked to other social institutions. So I look at this holy war. It's actually jihad is holy war in Islamic terms. And the holy war that the radical Muslims or the Islamic community, backed by external forces, that they are waging in an attempt, I think, to control and to prevail over the majority Hindu, native Hindu majority of Kerala and elsewhere. But I see this not so much as a goal, but I see this more as a conduit. This holy war attempt to contact and dominate. I see this as excuse me, is there some kind of an echo?
Yes, there is.
Have two things open, maybe one cell phone open, one computer open.
Could be that. Let me do one thing. If I take off my headphones, that maybe this will help.
Now it is okay, actually.
It is? Okay. All right. So I like to present this as a typology, a typology that describes and explains, many possible outcomes. And taking an institutional approach, so we look at the marriage and family, then we look at the institution of education, that's another conduit. These are many conduits, actually. Economy, market economy is another one, which is very strong. The political institutions, as well as the media, not to mention the media. So I see this love jihad, conquest through marriage, domination, as one of the many conduits for domination and control. And so, but the point is, well, let me say three things, at the outset. What we like to keep in mind as we examine this phenomenon is that, one, in this context, religion is relevant. So I would like to say that a religious formation by theory is actually a political formation. Religion is essentially a political phenomenon. It is indeed alien to the Hindu dharmic lens, but the Abrahamic religions, to include Christianity, Islam, and of course, I would like to add the new one, the Marxist variant, which also I like to see as a form of religion. So it is actually a political formation, one. And second, therefore, as a consequence, you should also see this as an identity forming phenomenon, that religion is identity forming, right? And three, therefore it becomes exclusivist. It has to distinguish itself from others. What is even more relevant and something very important for us to keep in mind is that looking at Kerala and even the broader scale India, the nation of India, or even the subcontinent, you would see that these imported religions, they continue to exist not as religions in India, but they still exist at the level of cult. So I'm more comfortable looking at Islam as a cult. I'm more comfortable looking at Christianity as a cult. And I'm more comfortable looking at the spread of Marxism as a cult, rather than calling it religion, because these are obviously, both structurally, functionally, and essentially, they are alien to the Indian ethos and Indian darshanas and our way of life. So they are to be seen as cults, and we can examine the many features, but I will not go into that. That's a different topic. keep that at the back of your mind. But what is important here is to say that the love jihad, it's nothing new to the Kerala context. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is that Kerala, the state of Kerala, or the region of Malabar, Travancore, Malabar, and Cochin, that region, these are the erstwhile kingdoms, and now Kerala, that region has been historically among the most communal of all regions in India, contrary to popular belief. It has been. And the best and the strongest evidence of that lies in the machinations of the Christian church. Okay. You will see that if you ever wondered why the Christian church has been so successful in that region, one, of course, as the previous speaker, Dr. Tundi Pramila, rightly pointed out, that the generosity of the host communities and the kings, yes, that is true. That played a very important role, of course. But the church, true to its spirit, it has always actively tried to spread its tentacles and eventually control the political economy of the region, right? I mean, keep in mind that we cannot separate the political from economic. Definitely not now. In the past, we may have tried to, but today it would be most inadequate if you try to do two things as separate. Political economy, that's one lens, and they're intertwined, the two components. So you can see from the practices and the history of the church that it has successfully in the past managed to control the political economy. Well, educational institutions is one. As I said, that successfully served as a conduit for the Christian religion community to gain acceptability. And the same path is now being followed by the Muslim community. And what the Hindus are yet to actually ask or to understand or to start wondering is that money does not grow on trees. The Hindus are yet to understand that idea, the idea behind it. And I will come to that when I focus briefly on the economic jihad also. My first encounter with this phenomenon was when I did my research on the religious movements and trends in Kerala back in 2009. I came across a bunch of informants who talked at length about the recent phenomenon, the then recent phenomenon called love jihad, whereby you had these jihadi Romeos from the Muslim communities. Mostly it was quite popular on the college campuses, would entice and lure Hindu women into romantic relationships and would trap them into marrying these Muslim men and eventually only to be sold off into sex slavery, sex trafficking, or eventually divorce and destitution, right? Later on, it sort of expanded to include other possibilities like recruiting them into radical Islamic global movements. Several cases have come out since, which I'm sure you're already aware of. So this phenomenon became quite popular. Several thousands of cases were actually reported, including from the judiciary also finally came up with some in support of this, although initially the governmental agencies denied and the communities denied, and then even used it to turn against Hindu or Hindutva, Hindu radicalism and intolerance. But it is a fact since then several cases have unfolded. So the love jihad is it's a reality. But again, the Muslim community, I would say, was only following a path cut out by the Christian community in the past, because we had several cases of Christian communities actually targeting Hindu females and also Hindu males. And in all these cases, there is proof that the church actually secretly, clandestinely actually encouraged this. And that is because in any society, you see, when you have the native majority, the dominant group, there is both relative prestige, power, and wealth associated with that particular group. So this is actually a strategy both to transfer wealth as well as prestige and eventually power into the hands of the religious minority. And so you'll see several cases long before 2009 or 2005, you see several cases where prominent Hindu families or so-called high caste, unfortunately I had to bring this casting into it, but higher the caste, the more prestige, so on and so forth. So higher caste families, lineages were actually targeted with people who actually own plum real estate and property in urban centers. Those families were actually targeted before the Muslims became a sort of a visible or a viable minority in Kerala. The Christians had actually practiced this. So, and it turned out to be a very effective and successful strategy to actually transfer wealth and prestige. And now, of course, the Muslims are very actively and aggressively engaged in that. So that is actually a sociological backdrop to what's been going on. The intent is this. So whether it is faithful fanaticism or a numbers game, well, you know, some people believe that demography is destiny. So in that case, you can say that, yes, this is actually a numbers game. In a democratic system, yes, it certainly helps.
Saraji, 2 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. Then I had to fast forward.
Mm.
Okay, very quickly, I'll go. Education is another one. There's been distortion of history. And with the overwhelming power and influence that the Muslim community, both communities, have exerted on the ruling apparatus, they have been able to actually manipulate and distort educational materials in schools. Even roads and venues have been named after Tipu Sultan invaders, and they are glorified. Now look at political apparatus. Yes, the CPM party, the most recent development in Kerala is that the CPM, since Kerala has obviously its last bastion, they had no choice but to rent out their space and their apparatus to the Muslim community. So thus the Pinarayi Vijayan ministry is running its second term. And that's a simple fact. That is, the space has been rented out to a forceful community with external resources. And one more thing, the media, I must actually mention that the media is another conduit through which sex jihad, love jihad is actually being promoted. And this is a very disturbing phenomenon. If you look at the Malayalam films produced during the last 5 to 10 years, you will see that the presentation is severely disproportionate, to the point that you have between 50 to 55% Hindus in Kerala and 18% Christians and maybe around 25% Muslims. You will see that 99% of the movies produced in the last 5 to 10 years, they present Christian stories and Christian themes. And you also see some manipulations taking place in the material cultural landscape of both the physical as well as in virtual. In the movies, that's all you see. For example, any village that is presented or showcased in a Malayalam movie, it will be cleansed of Hindu temples. You are not going to find a Hindu temple anywhere in the entire length of a movie. Instead, the movie starts off with a big cross, it ends with a Christian message. You examine the Malayalam movies, that is the trend. So that is a glaring kind of a pattern, and people are still not asking that question. Okay, so the material cultural landscape, that manipulation, as well as a virtual ethnic cleansing that is taking place through the media, is a disturbing trend. And I must end with a plan of action that I like to suggest, and that is that I'm very much in favor of supporting the creation of a platform for public intellectuals, whereby activists and intellectuals can bring into public discourse such issues. And one of the things that the Hindu counterforce can actually engage in is what I call a very peaceful, non-violent Gandhian approach, if you like to call it, is both the economic, political, and social boycott. Give you an example. There is now a very prominent investor called Yusuf Ali in Kerala. He has spread his tentacles everywhere. And it's very simple. He has opened his second gigantic mall in the city of Thiruvananthapuram with a Hindu majority, right? But he did not bother to build one in Kozhikode, which is a Muslim majority, because he wanted the consumers, the Hindu consumers, and he wanted to sell products that were manufactured or produced by Muslims in Telangana. So in this economic kind of network, the producers who gain, they are Muslims, and the consumers who lose are Hindus. This is also very much active on the economic front in Kerala. So I would actually look at this, and I do not understand why the politicians or the parties and the activists, why they are not talking about a peaceful, non-violent, non-cooperation in the economic realm, in the social realm, as well as in the educational realm. So this is very important. And then also there should be a reactionary movement in the film industry. And the most recently, last week, a good movie that's running to packed houses by Unni Mugundan, that Mepadiyan movie. It is actually a reaction to this. Kerala needs more such happenings, okay? And of course, to organize premarital counseling, one of the biggest disadvantages that the Hindu community suffers from is the lack of organization. Historically, it has been an unorganized entity, and you pay a price heavily for that, but that's something that you need to work on. I'm completely out of time. Thank you for giving me the slot. I will wait for any questions that you might have. Thank you very much, and namaste.
Thank you, Sharadji. So yes, you have brilliantly laid out the conduits which have been used to program the Hindu minds, education, and movie industry. I think these two have spoiled the Hindu minds like no others in Kerala. And yes, we are seeing the results. So with that being said, we move on to our next speaker, who is the most important man in today's newses. So I would like to introduce Sri Ramasimhanji, who was erstwhile known as Ali Akbar. He adopted Sanatana Dharma recently. He is a renowned filmmaker in Malayalam, screenwriter and a lyricist. He has directed more than 20 Malayalam movies. He received in 1988 the Best Debut Director Award from the Kerala State Government, and in 1996 the National Film Award for the Best Educational Motivational Instructional Film, Rabia Chalikunna. He recently adopted Hinduism, yes, as I said, and adopted the name Ramasimhan. He has been a bold voice against the sexual abuse in madrasas and spoken in the media about them. And he is also one of the persons who has been trying to expose the media narrative of the Mopla riots, which has been hailed as freedom movement, and that is the biggest lie which has been circling around in Kerala. So with that being said, Sri Ramasimhanji, over to you. You are 15 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. First of all, I'm sorry for my poor English. Anyhow, I can convey my thoughts. Mr. George and Sharath Menon well explained the history and economical facts in Kerala. I am going to tell the current situation in Kerala. I think it is in 1980, Jamaat-e-Islami started their activities in Kerala with the idea of Islamic State through their youth organization SIMI. I still remember the poster they released. It said "Liberation of India through Islam." In my village, they stuck this poster on a temple compound wall. This campaigning continued until SIMI was banned. Later, under the leadership of Abdul Nasser Madani, an Islamic extremist, the organization PDP was formed. PDP started campaigning and advocating actively for terrorism. PDP later transformed into NTF and STPA PF. Instead of stopping the growth of such organization, left and right governments competed to gain votes using these extremist groups. As we know, today they have very strategically grown into the political Islamization movement. Even though these groups changed their nature from radical Islamization to political Islamization, they retained their core ideology of jihad. The truth is that when IS terror spread worldwide, in Kerala, the growth was with the government's help. Jihad started in Kerala as early as 17th century by Tipu Sultan Hyder Ali. That is the reason behind the high Muslim population in Malabar region of Kerala. And as a result of maximum money flow for the terror activities also was to Malabar. These financial support fueled the speed of conversion and other terror activities. From love jihad to today's narcotic jihad, Kerala government is still keeping their strategic silence. Similar to that, we saw in other nations, these extremes have become successful here also in creating fear among our Muslim population, fear against the majority, and also the government of India. They instilled the idea of responsibility to save Islam and made the followers believe that they only can save it. And they very smartly use their fear to gather finance for their activities. These groups have been successful in planning their members in strategic positions within all departments of government. Even the general public has become aware that even in the police department, jihadis are present, but the government chooses silence over that as well. Many fear even the ruling party CPM is being controlled by these forces. Artists and writers are one of who expected to have an impartial and objective view on the country and society. But it is very sad that even they have been paid to be the mouthpieces. It doesn't just stop there. Even the film industry is a tool. Just like how halal concept was brought into food options, crores are being spent into the idea of halal cinema. One of the main money sources for all these activities in Kerala has been the Hawala money laundering. Are all Muslims jihadis is a question often asked. And it is true that a good number of Muslims population can be considered as moderate Muslims. But the unfortunate truth is that majority of the population has been psychologically conditioned through years of madrasa education to, if not accept, but at least look at jihadism with indifference. It is instilled into the every Muslim mind that anyone who doesn't worship Allah is kafir. And years of religious education has trained their subconscious to hate kafirs. And for the same reason, the distance between moderate Islam to radical Islam is very less. The religious education that starts at a very young age as 4 or 5 years old also injects sexual eccentricities very early in their lives. Madrasa education has very clear role in why terrorism turned, turned to believe in the idea of jihad and their reward of 72 virgins in heaven. It is difficult to say that majority of child abuse cases we hear are from madrasas, education center. And the truth is that only a fraction of the cases come out of public to know. The training is strongly voiced against the hate any other religion starts from very young stage. One must not take this education system lightly. Young minds are trained to build Allah's nation or the Islamic state, and their brains are conditioned at such a young age, and they barely ever come out of it. The Indian constitution does not know what is being taught in madrasas. Anti-constitutional ideologies are present in the holy books of Islam. The book proclaims that the Christian, Jews, Hindus must be hated. How is such a education allowed inside a secular nation? Only government supervision over the madrasas syllabus can be control such activities. Our general education system has carefully omitted the true heritage of our country or our Sanatana Dharma. Each of us are born into. Even someone who is born as a Hindu does not know what Dharma is or what is concept of God in our culture is. In short, Hindus are simply referred to and reduced to multi-god worshippers. Even the Hindus themselves are unaware or do not identify their life as a journey to the ultimate Brahman, the only source of power. They mistake Devadas to be gods or consider them as ultimate power. It is high time that at least Bhagavad Gita should be compulsory in our education system. While Indian Muslims are denouncing yoga education, Saudi Arabia is embracing it. Today, my concern for Kerala is that how long is it until it become the Islamic State? I fear the day is not very far. Earlier, if it was just a Malabar region where extreme Islam was prevalent, today it has grown and spread all across Kerala and surroundings, installing fear among Christians and Hindus. Terror organization-backed activities such as love jihad, cultural jihad, political jihad, narcotic jihad, and many other modern forms of jihad are intruding into common man's life. With burning of theatre in Malabar, Coimbatore, and Bangalore blasts, cutting off Professor Joseph's hand, to now the murder of advocate in Alappuzha, what we must not forget is the 1921 Mopla riot. These extremes recently dared to step out publicly in large procession with slogans that the source that slaughtered thousands in 1921 is not lost anywhere. If we live in a social system that allows extremists to publicly threaten the society, we must fear. I fear it is not that far until we hear slogans of Takbir Allahu Akbar from the streets of Kerala. They are dreaming one day Malabar, Lakshadweep, part of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka together forms a Islamic state. Not just dreaming, but planning and working towards it. It is the current scenario of Kerala actually. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ali Ramasimhanji, for this. You have well articulated the situations we are facing in Kerala. So thank you so much. And once again, welcome back to Sanatana Dharma, sir. So now we have heard what has been happening in Kerala. Now I introduce to a speaker who has been with his organization doing something on the ground to change the realities, which is support the impoverished Hindu community. So with that, I introduce to you Dr. Vishwanath. So he is one of the founder members of Hindu Seva Kendra, which is a social support organization based out of Kerala. Dr. Vishwanath is a Hindu activist who is he works as the global coordinator for Hindu Seva Kendram, a registered charity that works to emancipate and empower Hindus in the state of Kerala. Dr. Vishwanath basically is a practicing physician who is living in USA. He is primarily involved in identifying key weaknesses of the Malayali Hindu society and implementing grassroots level solutions. Let us hear it from Dr. Vishwanath. Dr. Vishwanath, over to you. Welcome, sir. Sir, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Namaste, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Sri Georgie, Sri Sharadji, and Sri Ramasimhanji. My name is Dr. Vishwanath. Without wasting any time, let's just move to a presentation I have. If you will bear with me for a second. Can everybody see this?
Yes, sir, yes. It's visible.
Okay, so let's go to the topic. In Kerala, we are fighting for survival. Like all of our speakers have said, Georgie explained the historical aspect, Sharadji explained the sociological aspect, and Ramasimhanji explained what is happening on the ground now. We are fighting for survival, no doubt. And Hindus of Kerala, traditionally, we have welcomed all faiths into our land. This is our ancestral land. And we have welcomed all faiths with open arms. And if you look at history, Christians, Muslims, Jews, they all entered India for the first time through the state of Kerala. If you look at history, this is in history. This is not a debatable topic. But Hinduism in Kerala is now facing an existential crisis. Unfortunately, we Hindus are not proud of our culture. We don't protect our way of life, and we are ignorant of who our heroes are. Hindu activists, they're not being proactive on the ground. And I mean that with an underlined statement. On the ground, they're not being proactive. And simply blaming other religions and other political ideologies for our own mistakes is not the answer, in my humble opinion. And there's a lot of things in Kerala we feel proud about: land of Parashurama, Srinarayana Guru's land, Adi Shankara's land, Kalaripayat, Ayurveda, Ayyappa, the list is endless. But we are about to lose all this. We are going to go from a living culture to a museum culture in a span of 10 years, maximum. 10 years. There's a lot of museum cultures all over the world. You look at the Aztecs, you look at the Incas, you look at the Egyptian culture, the Roman culture, the Greek culture, the Mesopotamian culture, they're all museum cultures. They're all been destroyed, and now it's just a tourist industry. Do we want to become a tourist industry? That's something we have to decide now. If you look at Hindus in Kerala, look at their population. From the first census by Lord Risley in 1901, every 10 years we dropped by 1.5%. In 2011, it was 50 to 55%, but it has dramatically dropped after that. This new census is going to open a lot more eyes, no doubt. The real population on the ground is only 45%. Hindu birth rate is steadily dropping. The lowest fertility rate in the whole nation, 1.54, far below the replacement value. In fact, that's the only number I would like anyone to remember from this talk, that 1.54. No population can survive. No ashram, no acharyas, no temples, no music, no dance, nothing will survive with that number of 1.54. Look at Kashmir. There's a curfew every day. Terror attacks, no hospitals, schools closed, banks closed, no internet, no healthcare facilities. Still look at the birth rate, almost doubled during this period. Right now in Kerala, among the newborns, Muslims outnumber the Hindus. This is not simple. Professor Sharath Menon has said that it's a numbers game. It is a numbers game. Right now, among the newborns, Hindus are a minority. So if you look at Hindus, we are an aging population, the highest median age and the lowest family size. And like previous speakers said, we are being gradually, strategically, and cleansed of Hindus in Kerala. It's an ethnic cleansing. But unfortunately, most Hindus do not know about this fast approaching storm. This is a storm which is approaching us. And if you look at developmental data in Kerala, again, Hindus score the lowest rates of household electrification, portable water, toilets, you name it. But we score very high in some other things. The highest suicide rate. Hindus literally own the suicides in Kerala. Almost always Hindus. Poverty, yes, other religions starve too, but we never know about it. Why? Because they take care of their own people. We have to admire them. They do a beautiful job of taking care of their own people. So when it comes to starvation, in the news, only Hindus. Hindu political power, 0. Hindu business ownership rate, entrepreneurship, very, very low. Several studies show different values, but it's always around 10%. Just for safety, I put less than 15%, very low business ownership rate. What are the issues facing Hinduism in Kerala now? Economic decline, hunger, illness, homelessness. Of course, our population is dramatically dropping. Low birth rate. Another major factor is the late age at marriage. Hindus marry very late. And this is a problem affecting the Christian community too. Love jihad, conversions, massive silent conversions, destruction of our temples, rituals, and of course, the all-prevalent anti-Hindu media. And I include the movie business in that. Always prevalent, always working against Hinduism. This is a pictorial representation of what's happening in Hinduism. On the outside, we see occasional blips of news like Shabarimala, love jihad, things like that. But the real problems affecting the Hindu community is hidden below the surface. And as in increasing order of severity, I put them down, hunger, illness, suicides, population declines, silent massive conversions, and of course our final threat, which is geographic elimination. We had to pack up and leave the state of Kerala. This has happened before. Hindus have always packed up and left. They never stood their ground. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kashmir, Bangladesh, parts of Kerala itself, Hindus are silently leaving. So this geographic elimination is our ultimate threat. And the ground reality in Kerala is numerous Hindu organizations, and they all do well-intentioned work. But if you look at the global picture, Hinduism is declining. The next Mapla riot, like Ramasimhanji just said, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. It's right here in front of us. So right now, we should act. There's no point in looking at any kind of ego anymore, organizational ego, individual ego, nothing matters. Only action can save us. And the lessons learned from Mapula riots, I just quoted the famous samurai from Japan on this, where he said that if you go beyond a point in benevolence, you will become a weak entity. This is what has happened to Hindus. We were so benevolent over the years that we have now degenerated into a state of weakness, and we are simple, easy fodder for any opposition. So our weakness is, we all know this, economic, social, physical, all those are weaknesses. And unless we address each weakness, history will repeat. We'll just be a museum culture. So we started in 2006 something called a Kerala Hindu Helpline. This is a 24-hour hotline where any Hindu can call anytime, 24 hours a day for any kind of help. And we have been running this for many years. So even now, this number you can call anytime for any kind of help. And we started this way back and it's still working. We get a lot of calls, hungry people, homeless people, people who don't have the money to educate their girls, people who do not have the money to conduct a marriage, a thali, Mangalya Sutra, 1 gram of gold. There's thousands of Hindu families who cannot afford it. So we get all these calls and we try our best to help. But we went into something called Hindu Seva Kendram, which was started in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. This is a concept where it's a micro level concept. This is a Hindu Seva Kendram in every panchayat, which will stay there and tend to the needs of every Hindu in that community. We don't ask for their politics, we don't ask for their origin, we don't ask for their caste, we don't ask for their family greatness, nothing matters. Any Hindu will be helped. With the common denominator, or a Hindu will help you. We'll also help people who are not Hindus. Anybody who comes to us, we will help them. And this Hindu Seva Kendram is a basic level concept we've been working on. And we have done so much Seva work over the years. I just want to show a couple of examples. There was this family from Palakkad who had mentally deranged children, and they took a huge loan out to treat these children. And of course, they were on the brink of losing their homes. And we had to do fundraising, and a lot of broad-minded Hindus from Houston, USA came together, and we paid off their loan and got their house back. And this is another example in Wayanad where a family from Canada came forward and adopted this whole family and gave them educational help, trying to get those 3 girls a life, because these are all poor Hindu families who are stuck with no light at the end of the tunnel. And here is another story. This is a heartwarming story where a young girl who was an orphan, who lived with her grandfather, no parents. Both parents left. They both went their ways and left this girl alone. And she had to drop out of school and stay and work at a local store in Kochi to feed herself and her grandfather and to buy his medications. It was a very sad story, and we had to intervene and got her enrolled in a professional course and made sure that the grandfather got his medicines and gave them food. And we are still supporting them and waiting until she finishes her professional course and get a job. So we try to address all kinds of weaknesses in the Hindu community, the same weaknesses I said before: economic, nurturing entrepreneurship among poor Hindus primarily. We are not trying to make millionaires, billionaires here. We are only trying to help the poor people at the bottom.
Dr. Vishwanath, please to interrupt.
Yes.
Please write down my mobile number. I will give you many suggestions about how to save Hindus. Don't worry about that.
Okay, all right. And I will.
Please
I'll
write down.
at the end of the meeting. Yes.
You have a. Okay, right. Thank
Okay,
you.
so let me finish first. So we are trying to nurture entrepreneurship socially. We are trying to get a sense of community at the grassroots level. Physically, we are giving self-defense training, especially for women, culturally, and of course, the numerical strength. And what are the obstacles to Hindu revival? Again, what we all know: poverty, illness, lack of access to education and jobs. Hindu women have very low access to financial resources. This is a major problem, the economic backwardness of Hindu families, primarily the women. They have no access, so we have to bring them out. And so we are trying our best to get the Hindu women empowered by encouraging a culture of entrepreneurship among them, make them aware, motivate them, train them, create self-help groups, and start a lot of micro entrepreneurship. We are in the process of planning that, and actually I started a couple. We are in the process of expanding that, where ordinary Hindu women can come together at the Panchayat level and start their own business and become financially independent. So our objectives in that is to basically take out the middlemen. Micro level women entrepreneurs should be successful, and we will provide them help by giving them technical help, by giving them a certain amount of financial help, and basically have a culture of entrepreneurship in the community. Our project timeline for Hindu Seva Kendram is we have more than 150 panchayats open, and we want to reach 500 this year and complete all Kerala coverage by next year. We have total of 1,000 panchayats in Kerala. Of course, we go by priority. Where there is biggest need, we go there first. And here is our website. Here is our Facebook page. This is how we can contact us. And of course, we have the 24-hour hotline. And to conclude, I want to say simply that this is the time to act. We all know the fact. We all know the fact that we are sinking. It's a sinking boat. Like Ramasimhanji clearly said, it's a sinking boat. We have to pull together, and it's time to act. Time to speak is over, in my humble opinion. So we should make sure that no Hindus will suffer or starve, and nobody should feel alone or helpless. So we have to come together. And I want to thank you for giving me the time to speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vishwan. So actually, the day I heard your presentation, I felt that, okay, we have still a lifeline for the Hindus in Kerala. Fantastic work, sir. I agree. We all know what the issues are. What we need is we need to go and act. Like, as you said, rich Hindus should open up their purses to help the poor ones. Okay, now I go over to Sri George Tundiparambil for his concluding remarks.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Please give my mobile number to Mr. Vishwanath.
Sir, you can put it in the chat box. We will. You can put it in the chat box, please. Thank you. So and one, I would ask.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So please put your questions. I have got 2 or 3 questions now. So we will be asking it to them. You can put it in the chat box, and please keep it specific to the solutions. We all know what the problems are. So George, sir, over to you. Please give your concluding remarks, and please unmute yourself. Sir, please unmute yourself. George, sir, please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. I was not aware of that. So I was closely listening to all the speakers, and what it is the enormity, you know, it is really so much that it is very difficult to be optimistic about the scene. But you know, I'm generally a very optimistic person, and also I'm very optimistic about the sense that can come back to people, because you know, dharma is innate in everyone, even in those people who have converted and who are working against, who are you know, in the midst of a dharma. And I'm sure there is some way to you know, to go around it, to come around. And I'm very heartened by the work of Hindu Seva Kendra, of which I have already heard about. At the same time, I think it is time that we act, like Dr. Vishwanath has said, and we have to act not in one way, not only as the victim, but we have to change many things in many fronts. First of all, every Hindu household should not only, you know, relearn things, and there should be programs for that in a very organized manner, and also you know, to support financially, and also a very big change in the Hindu image has to be, because unless you know, because the situation is so bad that you need a miracle to overcome all these attacks from all fronts. So that means we should aim for the political power in immediately or in the future. But the situation now is very bleak, because you know, the local BJP, which I have been viewing for some time, they are not viewed very seriously by the people, for the simple reason that they are actually act. I mean, there might be upright people and maybe morally much better than the others, but at the same time, the way they act and the image they have has to change very drastically. Because first of all, Hindus in general, when you say you are a Hindu, it is shown that because we know the truth, but they are supposed to be very traditionalist, they are very stone age people, so on. But actually, it is the other way around. It is the Semitic worldview, which is the in the past very primitive, which is impractical and illogical, and it is also unnatural. So what we have to do is a re-education and a change in Hindu image, and especially we have to attract the youngsters in from all over. And there are some signs of activity from inside the Christian community as well as the Muslim community, which is even more vocal and they are more visual. So, this ex-Muslim organization has happened, which is also giving a good fight against this radical Islam. They also stand for democracy and things like that. And there is another youngster group has come up. I heard a video clip about it. It was a convention that occurred in January, from January 7th to 9th in Alua. It was, I think, it was some organization, a Muslim organization for young professionals and so on. And they were, in very harsh terms, they were criticizing the SDPI and PF and so on. So there is a big movement coming from inside the communities as
Mujahideen,
well.
yes.
Mujahideen, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is it. So there is. It is not only from the Hindu community. I mean, it is not just a matter of the Hindu community here. It is a matter of civilization, our common culture, which is being lost. And because it is lost everywhere, and the only place where it can be saved is India. There is no doubt about it. So I think we have to be strong. Every even women and the children, they should be also given physical training and things, programs like that, so that it is, if the terrorists and the radicals are training, why not we can also train? Everybody should train. And it has happened in Kerala. Kerala has it has a history of physical training, and even women have the tradition of being in the martial arts and so on. So this can be taught, and it is also a matter of image. It is a statement. So I think in all departments and also in the media, we have to do a lot of work. We have to attract the youngsters from all groups, and we have to show the alternative to what is going on to this monoculture and so on. So because it is said violence begets violence and violence is bad and all that, but people who advocate violence, that is the only language they know. So we should be prepared for violence as well. So that is why this kind of training should be given to everyone, every Hindu household, and also give training to entrepreneurs. And they're in all sections of, I mean, all fields of life, there should be some activity. It is not just talking, as Dr. Vishwanath has said. There, I don't know how we can do that, but there should be something more done on the media. I've heard about one new film called Mepadiyan, which is doing the rounds, and we know it is becoming successful because the enemies are at it. So we know it is becoming successful. So I think more such endeavors come, and we should see some result in a few years, like 4 or 5 years. And also there should be some mechanism to bring in more people, upright people into the political field. They should go into every political party, and with this as their main um, objective, that is to revive our traditions. And also to in the media, the Puranas should be, Puranas have always saved our civilization. This is the only, there is a limit to the intellect for many people. I mean, majority of the people, but Puranas are stories that can get into the skin of anyone through the emotions. So I think they should be revived. All the Puranas in new ways of narratives, it should come to every section of the society. And I think a very important thing is to win back the so-called, the lower stratum of society. They enjoyed a good, a very crucial role in the ancient society, but they lost their dignity by this constant Marxist narrative about class wars and so on. We never had a history of class wars. Of course, there have been times, there was a time, and that was in the last 500 years mostly, that they had to suffer a lot. But it is, they have to regain their pride in who they are, their own traditions. And so we also have to give some impetus to these programs, and to win them back from this Marxist fold. I mean, this Marxism is anyway is gone now. It is in the hands of the gangsters actually, and the street fighters and so on. And even the terror outfits here are not more than these street gangsters who are trained to kill very rudimentally and so on. So we should be prepared for on all fronts, in education, in the media, in the entertainment industry. It is very, very important. And I think that is I should stop with that, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, George. So I think I can sum it up as we should be focusing on Shastra, Shastra, and Artha, right? So yeah, these three things. Yes. So if we revive these three things, I think we'll be in a much better place. Okay, sir. Now we'll go on to the question answer session. So I have two questions here. So the first one is to Ramasimhanji. This is from Ketan Goswami. Sir, being so knowledgeable and educated personally, why it took you so long to realize the problems with your prior faith? Sri Ramasimhanji. Yes, please.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. I learned Gita 20 years back, actually.
Okay, sir.
And I am individually I am working to promote what is Hinduism and what is Sanatana Dharma, and teaching in every temple when I am getting opportunity to speak to the crowd. And around 2 lakh, I have 2 lakh followers for my Facebook channel. But the political issue against a little bit against the movement, actually, because every political institution is approaching the so-called Muslim community for finance. We already said that the Hindus are not Vaishyas. So who is Vaishya in Kerala now? The Jamaat Islami, Mujahid, 99% of the well-known shops are from Muslim community. So they are giving the money to these political parties, even BJP. So they can't say anything about the extremists or any Muslim platform. They are keeping mum, actually. And other thing, you asked me why I'm very late. Is it the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Why it took you so long?
I'm not late. Actually, I'm working with Swami Chidananda Puri.
Yes, sir, yes, I follow you. I follow you regularly, so I know. Yes.
And at least I travel to every corner of Kerala since 2004. Actually, I'm
Okay,
promoting the Hindu culture.
yes, sir.
But Swamiji told me, don't go to don't change your name. Sanatana Dharma can afford anybody or include. So
Yeah, we are
I did.
inclusive. Yes.
So I stood in Muslim part as a Muslim part, and I tried to change my community.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Yes,
But
yes,
now I
yes.
raised, I can't change my community because there are so many good Muslims, but they will not speak against these bad Muslims. That is the
Yes,
matter
yes.
actually.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Last month, most hurting thing was that our death of our general.
Yeah, yes. Bipin Rawat ji. Yes, serious.
Bipin Rawat general. That time I saw so many emojis.
Yes,
It
sir.
hurt
Yes, sir.
me.
That was very
So
disheartening. Yes.
that the incident was, I took the decision. I don't want to be
Identified as a Muslim. Yes.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I'm
Yeah.
changed. But actually, I was in Sanatana Dharma and I was in the field. What I can do, I know I have changed around lakhs of mind
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
towards Sanatana Dharma. And
Yes, sir.
it is the first thing. I made a film on
Yes, yes.
1921 incident
Yes,
with
yes.
the
I know
help
that.
of
Yes.
these. I have collected 1 crore to 60 lakhs from poor Hindus and made a good film. I actually, if it goes to the Hindu's house, they will feel what happened to their instances actually.
Yes, sir.
So it is a real story and well made with a little amount. Anyhow, if it is reached every home, they will think. And
yes, sir.
they will.
Yeah. We will support you, sir. Once it is launched, we will have you will have our full support. Yes, yes. So the next question is to
Hello, Srikanth, sorry.
please type your question, sir. We will answer. So the next question is by Gayatri ji herself. It's to Dr. Vishnath. So her question is, can we use our temples as a hub of activity for the Hindu Seva Kendram activities like Annadanam, Goraksha, and Kalaripaitu and all these things? What is the?
It's a very relevant question. The answer is in a short answer is no. The reason is the temples in Kerala. There's about 25,000 temples, out of which around a lot of them, a good number is major ones are under control of the government. So when the government completely controls the temples, you cannot even enter that temple. You cannot enter it as an outside entity. It is simply not allowed. It won't happen. Never. Then comes the private temples, a lot of little temples primarily. Again, the problem there is most of them are privately managed by families. So this is actually a money flow source for a lot of families. These temples are basically run by a very small group of people, typically 1 or 2 families, and they keep their finances to themselves, they keep everything to themselves. And it's very hard to break into that environment and say, hey, we want to come in and do Annadanam here, we want to do Hindu education here, we want to teach girls Kalaripayat. All of those are not easy to implement in those temples because they are privately owned, and the sustaining of dharma is not on their priority list. I hope you understand. They want worshippers. They want people to come in and do pujas. They want people to put money in the hundi. They want people to participate in the festival. But when it comes to actual social activism, which the church does, and which the mosque does, the resistance you feel the resistance. Because I don't blame them. They simply don't have that in their DNA, this responsibility to the devotees. The Hindu temples all over the world, this is a normal thing for them. They want people to come in, they want people to support all their activities, but they don't feel anything back to the devotees. And the devotees need something, they don't feel the moral urge to go back and help them, which the Abrahamic religions have. No matter how much you blame them, we have to admire them for that mindset. So if a temple devotee falls, he comes to the temple every day, but falls sick, doesn't show up at the temple, will the temple send somebody out and check on what's happening to him? Never, never. But look at a Christian church or an Islamic mosque. If a devotee doesn't show up for prayers, they will send somebody out to check what happened. Are they ill? Are they sick? Are they starving? Do they have a problem? Let us see what we can do to help. This attitude is lacking in Hindu temples, and this is our basic problem, and we have to change it. I agree.
Okay, I have one more question. These are my questions. I would like to know about sex jihad. How do we prevent it? How do we spread more awareness about it? Because despite our best efforts, even now girls are falling prey to it. So what should families do? How should it be first detected, first avoid it in the first place? How should it be detected in the initial stages so that it doesn't reach that pass? That is one thing. And then I have another question too about the cultural degradation. For example, Onam is now being regarded, there is a propaganda that Onam, the Mahabali king, is actually either a Christian or an Adivasi, and the Avatara, Vamana Avatara, actually happened to kill Mahabali by deceit. So how do we tackle this problem? Because this is creating a lot of propaganda against Hindus. So this is a very important issue. How do we tackle this cultural degradation? And the third one is about madrasas. Madrasas are being funded 80% of the minority funds. First of all, I don't understand why should some minority funds be allotted. Why should we should be paying for the minorities? So-called that 80% of the fund goes to Muslims. So, and madrasas are literally, if you ask me, they are training centers for jihad. Maximum. So what do we do to stop this? Thank you.
I'm just assuming that the first question is to me.
For you, yeah.
Yes. Actually, I'm not sure, but the second and third, I don't know who you are intending to ask. But one thing I say is that something that cuts across all the three questions you asked is that the power of organization has never really been understood by the Hindu community, because historically, structurally, and functionally, so-called Hindus in Hindu community, it exists only in the minds of non-Hindus. A Hindu is a Hindu, a non-Hindu, not to a Hindu. So symbolically, if we were to start giving gifts to people, I would say that we should start by giving symbolically a mirror to every Hindu. Look for an appropriate occasion and give a mirror, because that sends out a very powerful message. He or she needs to start looking into the mirror to see himself or herself, right? So organized entities are identity forming. So historically, Hindus have been at a great disadvantage. Coming to your first question, How this can be prevented, the sex jihad? Not easy. Answer again is it's not an organized community. Second, if you look at the correlates of these sex jihad incidents, you will see that there is a strong correlation between urban, secularist, left-leaning families and incidents of jihad, okay? Which is not to say that it has not affected conservative Hindu communities. It has, because the conservative Hindu families are at equal risk of being targeted because they are naive, because they are not organized, and they can be quite unsuspecting. So then the third factor that is actually aggravating the problem is the mobile technology. The mobile technology is making it, it's actually facilitating clandestine communication among youngsters and teenagers. Okay, so that is a strong factor. So how you can prevent it? One main thing is by educating. Of course, now this has been brought into public discourse. Even in Kerala, it is being talked at great lengths, not only by private organizations such as ours, what we are doing, but it also appears in the media, in the print media, and the visual media, as well as the film media. This topic is actually brought into discourse. So there is an awareness of it. And as a result, there is a certain sense of caution. But I'm not so sure how effective a deterrent it has been. I can only say that I hope that gradually this is going to evolve into more of a sustained counter movement, a cautionary counter movement, so that the incidence of the sex jihad would actually go down. People, I think now, they think twice before attempting something like this, because the communities have become more vigilant, right? But no, I say no room for complacency. There is a lot more that can be done, that ought to be done. It has to be more aggressive than ever before. Then there'll be some hope for that. That's one.
I would like Dr. Vishwanath to please answer the question on cultural degradation of how do we address that problem?
I think cultural degradation is directly linked to love jihad. The love jihad is a one aspect of it. Just continuing what Dr. Sharat Menon was saying, love jihad is a major issue, and the Hindu Seva Kendram, we have intervened in more than 13,000 cases. And over the years, we have rescued about 8,500 Hindu girls. And we have, in fact, we had the most experience in love jihad under the sky, to be honest about it. We have intervened in so many cases and seen so many different ways love jihad happens. Like Professor Sharath had explained in his presentation, it comes through so many different ways. And it is directly linked to cultural degradation, because Hindus are not proud of themselves. They don't take pride. An average Hindu girl growing up in Kerala society is not made proud about her culture. Same thing with the boy. They just happen to target the girls more. If somebody were to target Hindu boys, they would be just as easy targets, believe me. So the cultural degradation is because they are not proud about who they are, who their culture, what their culture is, and they don't have any heroes. See, we don't have any heroes. All Hindu heroes over the years have been submerged, they've been swept under the carpet. Nobody knows about them. Nobody knows of our great warriors. Like, look at the controversy around Netaji, which is happening now. You know, he did so much for Bharat, but, you know, our textbooks had erased him, and now they're trying to bring him back. So we don't have any heroes. Until we have heroes, until we feel pride in ourselves, the love jihad, sex jihad, land jihad, all of these jihads will continue. So we have to aim for instilling pride, which is what we are trying to do at the grassroots level.
And if I may add one more thing, that this is very important and that we urgently put together something to the degree of what you see in the United States, the Jewish Defamation League, that we should have a legal defense team backed by an expansive team of constitutional experts. And they must come to forefront. And I think that's one area where, Dr. Vishwanath's successful organization can also consider adding that component to it, supporting legal teams.
We have a legal team. You must have all heard about Advocate Krishnaraj.
And Krishnaraj and Pratish Vishwanath.
We have a legal team, and we work with the Supreme Court level too, with like-minded Hindu activist lawyers.
It's very important. Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, we work with them. We have been working a lot trying to bring the temple encroachment problem back into focus. Approximately 500,000 acres of temple land has been encroached in Kerala. Most of them in the last 50 years, 500,000 acres, not a small amount. And we are trying to get it back. We have started a lot of legal lawsuits against encroachers. It's a very hot button issue in Kerala, which is going to get worse over the years because a lot of major institutions, bishop houses, mosques, churches, colleges, they're all standing on temple property.
Temple property, yes.
And once this becomes a major issue, which is going to become, it will change the landscape in many, many ways.
Yes, yes, yeah. And it's very important for us to actually support this legal defense movement, as you had illustrated very well in the example you provided. Not only the temple properties, I think there is a concerted effort to dislodge the legitimacy of Hindu civilizational heritage in Kerala. This has been going on for a long time. It's a concerted, highly strategized attempt, multi-pronged attempt to dislodge the sense of legitimacy of the Hindus in that region. So that's precisely where there has to be a strong counterforce to do just that, to dislodge a false sense of legitimacy of Christianity and Islam in Kerala. That's what we need to do. Hit back the same coin. That's the way to be road to peace, I think. So when groups stand neck and neck, then the opportunities, the chance of violence subsides considerably. When the greater the level of inequality, the greater the probability of violence. We need to bring it down by becoming aggressive.
So I have a question to Dr. Vishwanath and Dr. Sharatman. So we are hearing a lot about population control bill, which I personally believe is a harakiri for Hindus. So what are your views on that, please?
Population control is not going to help us at all, because a population control bill will only be adopted by the Hindus. Other communities, especially who, will find ways to go around it. Any law can be bypassed. There's always an open loophole somewhere. So population control bill is going to backfire on us. It will really make this Hindu decline even faster. I'm totally against it, to be honest about it.
Sharatji, your views?
A population control will only be detrimental to the Hindu community. And along with a reversal of that trend, I think Hindu families should also be made aware of the importance of land ownership. That's very important, because literally more and more Hindus are getting suspended up in the air. They're selling their lands and they're trading it for high-rise apartments. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very interesting what is happening in that state. And also the high rate of suicide. In most cases, disproportionately high percentage of, or percentages of Hindus, right? I mean, if the Hindus are like 50%, only 50% of the population, how come they are 92% in suicide, right? And so that is something to do with the essence of what is being taught. So what we need to do there is, I mean, if you look at it, you will see that these families collecting suicide, mass suicides that are happening in villages and suburban areas, you need to actually follow up on what happens to those properties where these unpleasant incidents have taken place. And you will see that in majority of the cases, those lands and property are actually being gobbled up by non-Hindus.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
makes you wonder what is really prompting these Hindu families, why they are being driven to the point of suicide.
I can answer that question.
Yes, biological. I'm sorry.
No, after you finish, I can answer that question. Why did it happen?
Yeah, biological terrorism is also another real prospect. You look at hospitals. Your Hindu families really need to think twice before actually approaching clinics, medical centers that are owned and operated by non-Hindus, as it happened in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Can I add my comment, please?
Yeah, yes, please, sir.
Yeah, the question about population, I fully agree that is going to backfire on us. But biological warfare is an ongoing problem in Kerala. I have watched it right from my medical school days. It is a very sad story, but all against medical ethics, but it happens all over Kerala. And I saw in the chat box there, somebody wants to know how to contact Hindu Seva Kendram. The easiest way is, you send a mail, or you call the mail at hindusevakendram.org, or you call the toll-free number. That's a 24-hour hotline. Any time of the day or night, you can call and somebody will answer the call. On why mass suicides happen in Kerala? It's very simple. It happens due to an unmet need. It's always the roti, kapda or makan story all over again. So it's always roti, kapda or makan, or some kind of immediate need, like the head of the household loses his or her job, or there is a cancer in the family, or a girl, cannot go to school. Is something dramatic, and we don't have a system in Hinduism to feel out to every house and get feedback from them so that the community can come and help them. The Hindus have no communication system. We will be eating a good meal and going to sleep, but the very next door, people will be starving and really thinking of suicide, but we will never know. This is very common. People always say, oh, we never knew our neighbors were going to kill themselves. We wish we knew. The question is, how come they didn't know? How come they didn't know that this family was going from despair to despair and finally killing themselves? So Hindu Seva Kendram is trying to correct that by reaching out to every family, especially poor families, so that when the need happens, there will be some community support network for them. And only this network will stop the suicides. Suicides do not happen out of the blue. They build up over time. It takes a long time for a family to kill themselves and their children. It's not an easy thing. It doesn't happen at the drop of a hat. So if we have a community network, we should be able to stop all of them.
Namaskaram. I'm sorry, I've been waiting for so long to ask you. This is Santosh Kurup from Chicago. Sharateta, namaskaram. Dr. Shashi, namaskaram. Ali Akbarji, namaskaram. One of the topics, we thought I should bring it up here again is this. Most of you know what that topic is. I keep saying, irrespective of what happens ideologically or spiritually, without addressing the economic empowerment of Hindus, none of these problems could be resolved. We have to economically empower the Hindus, and we can do it collectively. Only until and unless we do that collectively by empowering Hindus, the love jihad won't go away, the suicides won't go away, the superiority of the other community. I mean, Dr. Shashi and all know statistically, Dr. Sharat Menon also knows statistically that 7% of the businesses in Kerala are owned by Hindus. Okay, everybody, Hindu is an economic slave of other community. unless and until we change that by empowering. Start with we will start with economic plans. I mean, I keep saying in every forum I attend that we can't, there is no point in providing Gita or Ramayana on a plate to a person who is hungry. We need to meet their hunger first. So I keep saying, let us do something about it. A lot of us are ready to do that, and we can build it up. And this is the core theme of Christians and Muslims. Please look at it. They adore, they bring them together and do it. Let's do something about it.
Yes, sir. I just want to add a point to what Kurupji said. So Muslims have the zakat system or the jizya, and Christians have the tithe, but our temples are with the government. So we don't have a system to support our people. So it is us Hindus who will have to stand up, open our purses, and help the ones who are impoverished in our community.
And an even more efficient way to economic empowerment, which leads to political empowerment, is through euphemistically calling it, support Hindu enterprise, rather than saying boycott the others. Say support Hindu enterprise.
Yes. You have to be diplomatically, tactically
played. Yes, tell it like it is. Don't use words. This is what is happening. Explain the theory in simplest of terms. And if you still don't get it, too bad.
And how do we still have a lot of deniability amongst Hindus, especially the middle class and the upper middle class is still living on a denial that we are being targeted or we are just losing our ground. How do we address this issue? To Dr. Vishwanath ji.
Sir, unmute, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure if I'm the most qualified person to answer that. In my humble experience, Hindu professionals, upper middle class, upper class, born privileged Hindus, they're the ones who are constantly being silent. They're the ones who do not respond, which we all know, because they live in a bubble, they live comfortable lives, they don't see themselves in any imminent danger, so they don't think about it. Or even if they think about it, they want to close their eyes and pretend as if nothing happens. The only way to get around that is, one, by persistent education, persistently going to them. Even if they ask you to get out of their house, we have to keep going back to them. And I have seen where some of them will eventually turn around, or something bad has to happen to them. All of these seculars, once their daughter disappears, or once their something bad happens to them because they got attacked. I know a lot of seculars, because believe me, we have done so much work in Love Jihad in Kerala. I know a lot of secular leaders, Marxist leaders, major party leaders, and they lost their daughter to Love Jihad. And you know what? The next thing they call us and say, oh, I want my daughter to be brought back. I don't care what do you do, but bring my daughter back. That it took them that long. When their neighbor's daughter got abducted and raped, they didn't care. It didn't bother them. It didn't move the needle even one bit. But when their daughter got abducted, all of a sudden they want the entire law. They want everybody to join in and save my daughter. But my neighbor's daughter, oh, maybe there was something, who knows? I don't care. See, this attitude has to change. So maybe Love Jihad should become more rampant before people will realize. Maybe the the Mapula riot-like thing, which is going to happen, should happen quickly before the intellectuals and upper middle class will wake up to this.
So basically, it is the trend of abusing the weatherman who is predicting the storm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Srikantji?
Yes, please.
So actually, one question is that to Ali Akbar sir, do you consider that Muslims are also victims of Islam? And do you differentiate between Islam and Muslim?
We can't differentiate Islam and Muslim. Every Muslim bears the jihadi aspect in their mind. And we can consider moderate Muslim, educated Muslim, who coming from some moderate families. They know their ancient culture. Then only they can think like our. I know so many Muslims know their Hindu back. So they're telling they are not Islamists but Muslims. That difference is there. But anyhow, if something happened to a Muslim, all Muslims will be their part. Nobody will help us.
Yes,
That
yes.
is the thing. There is a name for Muslims in Malabar, Kaka. Kaka means crow.
Crow.
If what we can, you throw a stone to a crow, what will happen?
All the crows will get together.
That's why we call Kaka. So if somebody is a moderate Muslim, if something happened to Muslim community, they will join to the mass.
But Ali Ramsimenti, I'll tell you one more thing. But we have this.
Just one thing. Are Muslims victim of Islam? Do you think Muslims are victim of the Islam and ideology of Islam?
Of course. They are dreamers actually. They are dreaming for heaven.
And the 72.
72
Ali Akbar, please,
even they don't know the hell is better than heaven.
Ali Akbar, I want to ask one question. Do you think Hinduism is still secure?
Of course.
Thank you so much.
One
sir,
question to Sararji, please. I feel women are treated very badly, in fact, like subhumans in Islam. Why is it that there is no revolt from women in Islam? How does it sustain itself? Why don't we?
Well, recently there was something was brewing in the Muslim League segment in Kerala, which had to do with the use of some aggressive and abusive language by men towards the women members. Okay, putting that aside, the belief or the concept of a woman in Islam is basically, it is a two-dimensional kind of an idea. A woman is a reproductive machine, and a woman is a sex object. And there is no sort of stigma attached to it. There is no stigma attached to sex, but that's okay. And reproduction, that in itself is, yes, that is innocent, but nothing beyond that. As you know, in Saudi Arabia, until very recently in Saudi Arabian universities, women are not allowed to teach. In fact, my own relative cousin was the first female professor to teach in a medical college in King Faisal Medical College, Dammam, on one condition that she would be married. She was not married at the time she was recruited. And secondly, that she would wear full sleeves blouse and cover her head, and also interact or teach her medical students only through closed circuit television, not face to face, right? So those, and women are not appointed as judges. So their judgment is not considered human or valid. These two are there. However, linking back to the earlier question asked, there appears to be between at least some essence of Islam and the way it's practiced, understood in Islamic societies where Muslims come, right? Muslims, if you see them as human, then yes, they are victims. I answered your previous question. The role of women, according to Islam, as opposed to the role of women in Muslim societies, they are different, actually. Historically, the practices have actually been different. So why women are actually in a subordinate role? It has to do with the way how that particular ethos, Islamic ethos, has shaped men's view of women. And that is, a woman is a reproductive machine and she's a sex object, but she does not have judgmental powers, and there cannot be matriarchy, there can only be patriarchy, that is where men make decisions. So I hope that answers it. However, I have to share one thing with you, which actually it sort of germinated in Kerala society some 10, 15 years ago, when one of my acquaintances, who's actually a writer by the name Madhavi Kuti, Kamala Das, in conversations I had, Kamala Das, who later, they say, converted to Islam and got the name Kamala Suraya. She actually told me that the reason why she actually put on that facade is to actually create a silent revolution in the Muslim community. But that's just a conversation between me and Kamala Das. And that was the plan. And as a result of that, she's the one who popularized this very fanciful, decorative kind of, hijab and women's outfit among the Muslim community, which is now very popular. She was actually a driving force behind it. So some attempts were made, but actually it came from outside. Kamala Das was an Iyer woman, from matrilineal society where women have always been very powerful. So it came from there. I'm
Shobha,
please.
I was waiting, so I thought I'd talk. Thank you so much. It's a very good way to discuss. But I am a proud supporter of the Hindu Seva Kendram, through of which I got to know via Dr. Vishwanath here in Atlanta. And I support one Panchayat for almost a year, I think. So we need to popularize that. Whatever they're doing is splendid. But what I wanted to ask are 2 or 3 questions. Here in the US, we are putting together political action committees, and the one for like a federal level and then state chapters. And I would like to know or recommend that I think it is high time for Hindu political action committees in every state in India. Because just before this, we have put together a team to help the Bengali Hindus. And I'm from Tamil Nadu, Chennai, but I'm a global Hindu. I'm not bound by all these language and state barriers. But the southern Tamil Nadu area, and everybody knows about Kashmir as well as in Maharashtra. So it really is time. I mean, we all, I think in this group know the problems. We have to look at solutions. And we have a state committee with dedicated people. And that way people can donate from everywhere. So the funds problem and to train. We need to empower the Hindus. That is important. Establish Hindu schools. Through that, empower the minds from young age, so they will never get, attracted towards other than Sanatana Dharma. So that is one, I want to put forward that idea. I really think we need state action committees, and we all should network across the state so we don't reinvent the wheel. I think Hindu Seva Kendram model, Agniveer model, we can do that all over the country. That's one. And then number 2 is, in terms, very specifically, I want to ask, what are the role of central government and other abilities to talk, to kind of invoke the national security agenda and say that these Islamic State models coming up are really a security threat to India? So, I mean, what does it take to overrule? The reason is, recently, President Ramnath Kovind was invited for an award by the governor of Kerala, and then it was refused. And he had to sit in the Raj Bhavan for one whole day without any other. All of his events that day had to be cancelled. And he was left without water at a restroom. I mean, this is kind of similar to what happened in Punjab. So what does it take to invoke the national security? Because if ISI and ISIS and IS are planning a lot of things, what does it take to work for the center to overrule? What can we do for that? So I really want, some thoughts on both, what practically solutions. That way, one umbrella Hindu committee, and you address all the issues, and this should be a state and networked kind of model. Thank you.
It's a good opinion. We have to make a association.
But Ramasimhanji, I would just like to intervene here because see, what I personally feel is, see, I'm not an expert like other people here, but this is just my thought. So I think whatever activism we do, okay, we should never depend on any political party. It should be free of any kind of politics.
No, because this is not political party, but let me tell you, Hindu political action is very important. When we distance ourselves from political, you're giving up. In America here, there is a saying.
I'm not talking about distancing. I'm not talking about distancing. I'm talking that we should not depend on a party.
No, that is why I'm saying bring it ourselves. We need to be. There is a saying in America, if you're not at the table, you will be on the menu. So we need to be actively engaged in making the rules for ourselves. Otherwise, this will go nowhere for the Hindus, right?
Let me say my opinion on this. Shobhaji, namaste. The answer is, I think you hit the nail on the head, Shobhaji. We need a Hindu vote bank. To create a Hindu vote bank, we need a Hindu political action committee who will guide that vote bank. Hindus have to vote united. Unless they start voting united, nothing will happen. So for when even if 10% of Hindus became a vote bank, it's still about 5% of Kerala's population. Believe me, every political party will come to your doorstep. They will want to negotiate. They will want to know, what do you Hindus need? All we have to do is take 10% of Hindu votes. So a Hindu political action as a united front is absolutely the need of the hour, and I fully agree with you, Shobhaji.
Yes. I also agree with that, Shobhaji. But my point was that we should not depend on one political party for creating.
I can call it a Hindu league.
Yeah.
The barrier to it is that, this India being a federation of states, there is always a contestation between state power and the center. So the incident that you alluded to, that conferring, honorary doctorate to the President of India, the state was simply flexing its muscle. That's all it was. They wanted to insult and humiliate the BJP government at the center. That's all they did. It's not the first time. And go back 3 years to go the Sabarimala incident. That again is a clear illustration of this competition between the state and the center.
There is a big, not even a fine line, there is a very strong line between insulting Sabarimala in the name of secular democracy, whatever, but they insulted the office of the President of India. I think, it is not even a Hindu matter anymore. It is a cause of the entire nation.
Yes, but the state, but it's a federation. Therefore, the state can flex its muscle. Unfortunately, that's what the Muslim-supported Marxist government did. They just wanted to do it.
Even Tirumala Tirupati chairman is Christian. So can something be done on that? Because it's one of the main temple, and having Christian as chairman, something has to be done on that. Jagan Mohan Reddy's uncle, who is a Christian, is the chairman of Tirumala Tirupati temple.
Yes.
Well, I think we are focusing here on Kerala, but yours is a relevant question. So people who vote for Jagan should think about it.
In fact, Tamil Nadu has an atheist chief minister as the manager of the temples. I mean, the head of the temples. So it's as bad as that. Because the government is having temples with it. But I have one question here. We need to finish. We need to wrap up. One small question here. Why is there a race for the Muslim votes across all parties? I see even BJP these days. So please, any of you who can answer, I mean, the panelists, let me open it up to any of you.
Please, any of you please answer.
So the Kerala is totally pro-Arab and it is supported by Arab financially. So most of the Kerala population is in the Gulf countries. So they obviously they support Muslims and so the pro-Muslim party wins in Kerala. Even for BJP to win, they need Muslim votes. So it's obvious. Otherwise,
No. It's a false assessment. If BJP want to win, they need Hindu vote.
Yeah.
Actually, BJP, Kerala BJP have 8% of Muslim vote. Last time I was a candidate in 90% Muslim area, and I got 11,585 votes. So we have to accumulate the Hindu vote.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
I agree with you, Ramsimji. Hindu votes are not with BJP. BJP only attracts about 20% of Hindu votes.
That is the thing.
You cannot get to power in any place with 20% of votes from your own constituency. BJP only gets 20% of Hindu votes, and the Hindu share of BJP is actually dropping if you analyze the last few elections.
Yeah, because of what? That we must,
because of caste splitting. Because of
we
caste
have to learn
splitting.
from. First of all, we have to learn two incidents. First incident was I was the about the Misha novel problem.
Yes, sir.
I took that incident that matter to social media, but around 3 lakh copies of Madhubhumi lost. They lost 3 lakh copies. Sell of 3 lakh copies. After that, in Sabarimala issue, who took the leadership? Is it BJP? No,
it was not BJP. BJP entered late.
Think about that two incidents. We can make it. We can make it. I know. I can make it. If you are with me, of course, I can call Hindus with this name, Ramasingam. At least 3 lakh people will come to join us. 3 lakh. Within 1 month. Even Major Ravi is there. Major Ravi is there. T.P. Simulkumar is there. So many known persons are there. BJP don't want to get in, associate these peoples into BJP. Last 4 years, they took away.
So Kerala BJP is a joke, sir.
To attend a single meeting. So there are many people, well-known people, they want to get into the scenario, but there is no platform to work. That is the problem.
That is the problem. Yes.
That is exactly what Shobhaji is.
We have to make a Hindu platform.
That's exactly what Shobhaji is suggesting, to have a non-political Hindu platform, which is what Islam does, which is what Christianity does, and hats off to them, because they move their entire block of votes the day before the election based on one phone call. On one phone call, millions of votes change, and every political party knows this.
That we can do.
Why can't we do this? Why can we do this?
We can also do that.
Sir, I want to say, I want to highlight something again here. Please, why did Communist Party win last time? Ali Akbarji, you know it very well. All of us know it very well. Sit to ask you why? It is not caste or anything there. We all know very well. I am somebody who worked for Kumaram Rajashekharan aggressively last time. Okay, here is the thing. Hindu leaders cannot promise economic empowerment to Hindu, meaning BJP or anybody. Okay, so who is the business owner? It's a Muslim or a Christian. Will you vote against your boss? You won't. That is one major thing. Until and unless we change the economic dynamics of Kerala, bring more businesses into Hindu hands, and that will bring media power. Okay, So all these false narratives will have to go away. All unless and until we radically change that base, it is not about caste or it's not about religion. It's about economics.
Yes,
If
yes.
we
Yes,
change that
exactly.
narrative, I'm saying that is the only way. Because
Keep
without
the
that,
Hindu money rolling within the
nothing is
Hindu
going to change in
community.
Kerala. We all know that very well. So talking the same old story doesn't help it. We have to change. And we can. Look at Ali Akbar. Ali Akbar gets the support of people because he stands for a cause. So that is that cause to get the big fold of Hindus into our thing, economically empower them, we can. And the unfortunate thing is, it is possible to do it, and it doesn't have to be from the temple. BJP is not going to do it because they want to, and the current leaders of BJP, they want to show themselves as secular. Okay, so
Yes,
but
of course.
Muslim League leaders doesn't want to show them as secular. CPM leaders does not want to show, even though they say, but BJP leaders wants to. BJP lost cadre in the last election. We all know that very well in Kerala. Kummanamji lost an election in Trivandrum because people within BJP did not vote for him because of the leadership's problem. So without addressing our internal problems and without making a sound economic basis, no matter what you do, it's not going to change Kerala's narrative. I mean, that's proven. I mean, please tell me otherwise if I am saying it wrong.
Okay. Thank you, Santoshji. Yeah, so I think we'll have to end this here. We have crossed our 2-hour mark. So I once again like to thank George.
Hello, can I speak for 1 minute if you don't mind? I take a few seconds.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah, yesterday I was part of the screening of the movie, The Conversions about Love Jihad. It was actually by NRIs. They spent millions of dollars, $1 million. It's a wonderful, wonderful movie. I wrote an article, actually first post, Ambani's newspaper, actually portal is publishing it. We all need to publicize. This really goes, it's a really very, very well taken on the whole contours of Love Jihad, what happens and how it happens and where it ends up. Very powerful. Please, I think they are going to release in April. I request everybody to get to know this movie and publicize it and let the Indians and Hindus in India know about this thing.
Thank you for bringing it up. The censor board did not allow it for a long time. And then they've got the thing. So please do see it is set in Varanasi and wonderful, important movie to watch and support.
Yeah, thank you. So by
that, did you talk about your movie, please? It is the same theme. Please, he has completed the movie, and please talk about 2 minutes.
I wanted to say about the conversion because I'm part of the movie, the production team. So yes, we are doing screening all around across the United States, and it will be soon releasing around in March in India. So you must all watch it, definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Divya. Thank you.
Name of the movie somebody asked, it is called Conversion.
The Conversion. And there is a website called theconversionmovies.com. I'll try to share it in the chat. You have all the information there. Please share the trailers. Trailer is also there. So please do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to promote my film also worldwide.
Sir, please mention the name of your movie, Ramasimhanji.
Actually, it is 1921.
The Mopla. Yeah. Hindu genocide. Yes.
1921, from river to river.
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely.
Let me take a second. Let me take a second and say welcome back, Sri Ali Akbarji. Welcome home.
Thank you, sir. We have exceeded our time limits. Sorry, we will have another session, and I would like to wind this session up. So thank you, Georgie. Thank you, Dr. Vishwanath. Thank you, Ali Akbarji.
Thank you.
Ramasimhanji, and thank you, Sharadji. So I think we will have one more session sometime down the lane because we have a lot of ideas and questions coming up. But unfortunately, the only thing we don't have is time. So as we all have said, it's time to act. And let's all act in our own Yatha Shakti. So thank you, and Jai Shri Ram, and Namaste to everybody.